Hi there, welcome back on the channel. This time we have another Toyota to review, and it's actually another Toyota with the hybrid system, similar with the one that you can already see on the channel, the yesteryear model. This time it's the Corolla with a sports touring shape, so it's not the hatchback or the sedan. And the configuration, as I said, it's a hybrid with 1.8 liter petrol engine and the electric part. Manufactured in 2021, and this one has done about 80,000 kilometers until now. And I was saying that we have almost the same system, the same powertrain. In this case, like it was on the yesteryear. Meaning that we have the 1.8 liter 4-cylinder naturally aspirated petrol engine with a couple of electric motors coupled with the eCVT transmission, and the power goes only to the front wheels. What the hybrid system means in terms of specs, you do get a couple of electric motors. One is used to generate electricity, and the other one can power the car at least for a small amount of time. The specs on the sheet are for the electric motor something like almost 72 horsepower and about 160 Newton meters. And in terms of the petrol engine, you get almost 100 horsepower and about 140 Newton meters. Being a eCVT system, that means that we don't add those values. So the overall output of the system is 122 horsepower and only 142 Newton meters. Carrying on with the specs, we have a top speed limited to 180 kilometers per hour, compared with 170 from the yesteryear. And the sprint from 0 to 100 happens once again in about 11 seconds. But you know me, and you probably, if you're interested in such a model, you know yourself, you're not really gonna care about all those numbers. The thing that is gonna interest you the most is the space, how reliable is the car, and also the consumptions. And once more, on the spec sheet, Toyota claims that inside the city you'll get values as low as 3 and 3.3 liters per 100 kilometers. And a bit higher outside the city, which is a bit weird, but I am kind of trusting them. At least on this model, I saw average consumption of about 5 liters, and it was driven outside the city quite a lot, and for a moment inside the city. So yeah, probably they're right. And considering the history of the system, you can see it from the Prius to any other type of vehicle that Toyota makes. It sure seems to be a reliable system, a low maintenance system. And there's another thing. Leave the hybrid system aside, the design of the thing. I mean, look at it. From back in the days when Toyotas were kind of econo boxes or rugged vehicles to get you from A to B, nowadays, as you can see, they've got an interesting design. And come on, even the new Prius seems really nice on the outside, and for the most part on the inside as well. So yeah, I think this is how a family car should look like nowadays. Continuing with the theme of family car, let's check out the trunk space. As you can see, it's plentiful, especially if you're considering that this is a compact car here in Europe. And even though it's a mass market vehicle, not a premium one, the cover, it's easy to use. You're not really gonna get dirty from the bumper if you're trying to reach in and pull it. And the space itself, as I said, is more than enough. I mean, you can probably get at least 7, maybe 8 carry-on luggages like this one in here, and for sure some baby stroller and I don't know what else people are bringing with them when they have kids. You also get some hooks and the ability to fold down the rear bench from here, an additional cubby space with a 12-volt outlet and the light for the trunk area. Something similar on the other side as well. And underneath the boot floor we do get some additional space, and let me try to show you also with just one hand that we also get a small spare tire, which again is nice to see. Actually, the floor of the trunk could be lowered, but then you'll get that ridge over there because that's the battery, at least a part of the hybrid system. That's also underneath the chairs. But if you need some additional space, as you can see, you can lower this and you get even more space for your things. Let's check out the back seats. And consider once more, this is not a premium vehicle, so the materials are not going to be so interesting. They're quite brittle, but at least on the armrest you get some soft fabric similar with the one from the seats. You also get a pocket here and a speaker. An additional pocket here on the seats, some air vents and light fixture, and as you can see, an armrest with a couple of cup holders that are not adaptive. And also, it's pretty hard to get this thing to come out because you don't have a handle for it, but for the most part it's all right again. So this is the space back here. As you can see, I have more than enough space. For my knees there are about 4 fingers of space, even though the front chair is almost in line with the B-pillar, a bit towards me actually. And also for my head there's about 3 to almost 4 fingers of space. Once again, it's interesting. You wouldn't say that, at least here in Europe, this is a compact vehicle in terms of space. You could also stretch your legs under the front chair. You have the air vents, a small transmission tunnel, which is actually good for the third passenger if you intend to use the car this way. So yeah, overall my only complaint is, almost as usual, the seat bench. That's a bit short for my legs. I don't have quite enough support, under tight support, but other than that, once again, it's more than fine back here. Going towards the front of the car, things are getting a bit better. The materials are softer up here. You get some decor elements on the handle, some contrasting stitching, even though this is plastic, but okay, it looks nice. The door pocket, it's even bigger compared with the one in the back, and you also get a speaker in here. In terms of the seats, they look quite interesting. sort of sporty with these shoulders up here, and what seems to be an integrated head reset. But as you can see on the driver's side, you can adjust it by height, and also the whole chair can be adjusted by height, and that's pretty much it in terms of movements. But if we have a seat inside, I can notice an interesting sound for the door when you close it, and at the first glance you could say that it's quite limited space in here, because the dash is kind of close to my knees. I've got about a finger of space, but if you stretch your legs and sit upright, you can see only this part of the dashboard comes towards you. Lower back, you can maybe squeeze a couple of fingers, and you have more space to move around. That's also a good thing, because if you rest your knee on a long trip, you don't really get anything hard to upset your knee, even though here lower back the materials are not amazing. But again, it's not a premium car, so I wouldn't expect something else. And also the glove box, even though it's not covered, at least it's quite deep. So again, that's nice to see. At last, we'll check out the driver's side with a similar door card, but you do get some controls for the electric windows, and they are all with auto function, which is nice to see. You can lock and unlock the doors from the inside and adjust the outside mirrors. In terms of the seat, you get an additional control for lumbar. It's only on two-way adjustment, but it's alright. On the left side of the steering wheel, you control the height of the headlights, the auto function for the low beam and high beam, and also you can deactivate the traction control. Now let me have a seat inside the car, and actually I'm gonna start it as well. This is the driver POV. The steering wheel, it's an alright size, not too thick, and it does have physical controls. Even though it's manufactured in 2021, you still get those on the steering wheel. On the left side, you control the small display from the gauge cluster, and also some controls for the multimedia. And on the right side, some additional controls for the multimedia and the assistant systems. And as you can see, we have adaptive cruise control. Nice. Behind the steering wheel, some usual stocks for Toyotas, and another interesting part for the gauge cluster. If you saw the yesteryear review, you saw that over there we had the power meter. In this model, even though it's the same system, almost the same system, we get a rev counter. Interesting, but yeah, it's nice to see how the engine performs. You also get coolant temperature indicator, which again, it's nice to have in a hybrid. And the small display over there shows quite a lot of information actually. You control the assistance systems from there. You can see the power flow from the engine to the battery, or when you're regenning, when you're using the car in sport mode, when it uses the engine and also the motor to drive the car. As you can see here, we get the controls for the driving modes, and also that's the overall consumption, the average consumption of the vehicle. Moving on, we do get a dark headliner, which is kind of sporty, even though this is a touring. But you get some light controls over here in black, and an SOS button with a tiny flap, which is nice to see because you won't be pushing it by accident. The mirror is not dimmable, but yeah, for the most part it's gonna do the trick. Also the infotainment screen, again, consider that the car is from 2021. Toyotas are starting nowadays, maybe from 2023 and onwards, they're starting to get better infotainment screens. This one is quite low res and it doesn't have all the functions, but at least you can connect your Apple CarPlay or Android Auto system. Then you get the hazard lights, the controls of the HVAC, which are physical, once again, nice to see. A small cubby here with some controls for the heated seats. These controls are a bit out of place in this interior. It seems like they've put them after they made the car, but they're gonna do the trick, so overall it's alright. Then you get the driving modes from here, and also the EV mode, the gear selector, which I don't know if I can show you. It's a bit weird. You think that you can unlock it by pushing it here, but no, you have to push it like this, from down to up. It's an upward motion. Anyway, you'll get used to it. Then you get the parking brake and also the hold function for the brakes. Always nice to see, once again. A couple of cup holders that are unfortunately not adaptive in front either, and the armrest does have a bit of space, a 12-volt outlet and a USB port as well. Welcome to the driving part of the review. As you can see, we have a different scenery today. We've got some fog into the driving part, but as I can see, the camera captures the image without a problem. So it's actually, on camera it seems better than in real life. So we don't have a problem experiencing the Corolla Sports Touring on the road. I've already drove the car, I've got my first impressions set up for you, and probably here and there I'll compare this model with the yesteryear that you can already see on the channel. It's not necessarily a fair comparison, but I'm not considering the vehicles like to like, but in terms of their driving system, they have almost the same hybrid system, so they're supposed to be pretty similar in terms of how they feel on the road. So yeah, for the most part, this is a simple vehicle, easy to drive, easy to live with. The controls are nice and easy. It's not a premium car, so probably you'll have to manage your expectations. But overall, it's quite an average car in terms of comfort levels, dynamics even. I know it doesn't seem that way on the paper, but in real life, it's more than fine. Yeah, the steering is a bit vague, and even though the overall power of the system is 122 horsepower. If you're in a rush, when you pull out from a junction, you could actually lose some grip from the front tires, which is not something that I was expecting. But considering that the first meters the car drives on electric power and the torque is instant, I can see why it happens. Other than that, the controls, as I said, are nice to use. The brakes are easy to modulate. You don't really get the feeling of regenerative braking, not on drive at least. If you switch the gearbox into B mode, then you get a bit more regen braking. But other than that, the brakes are fine. The gearbox doesn't really need any introduction. Again, the eCVT is very popular, awfully reliable, and yeah, in town and at a lower pace, if you're not in a rush, is the perfect transmission. It doesn't have real gears, so it's very comfortable. It keeps the engine at around 1.5 towards 2000 RPMs, even until 100 kilometers per hour. And again, it's really reliable. What more could you ask for it? If you tend to drive a bit sporty, yeah, you have to get used to it, with the fact that the RPMs are gonna be kept quite high for a moment at least. Once you set up a cruising speed, then it's gonna come down again. So you'll hear the noises coming from the engine only when accelerating pretty hard. If you're driving at a constant speed, you wouldn't know if you're driving on gas or electric. Other than that, maybe the insulation could have been better, but for this type of vehicle and the price point, again, is more than enough. When you close the front doors, at least, you get quite a dense sound, which is nice. The problem starts when you go to the rear doors or towards the trunk area, and I suspect that the noises inside the cabin at speed come mostly from there, because otherwise, considering the fact that we are running on 16 inches in terms of the wheels with 205 by 55 tires, that's actually the main noise inside the cabin. It helps a bit with the comfort levels of the suspension, but interestingly, yeah, that's the main noise coming from outside the vehicle. As it is not a SUV or a crossover, you don't really get that much wind noise from the mirrors. They're quite small. So yeah, maybe they could have insulated the car a bit better in the window area, but at least in front and towards the lower part of the vehicle is more than fine. So I'll get to the part that where I'm explaining the things that I enjoy and the things I am not really a fan of considering this vehicle. And I'll start with the positive side without neglecting the fact that it's a reliable system, a reliable car. The fact that it's so easy to get used to it and to drive it even on long distances. I think that I enjoyed the space in the back, on the rear bench, and also on the trunk area. Honestly, I wasn't expecting it to be so roomy inside. And I also appreciate the fact that this model at least comes with adaptive cruise control, which makes it even easier to drive outside the city. This is not really a car for me and not their target audience, but I understand it. I understand why would you go for this and not an SUV. I understand why would you go for this system, the hybrid system, and not for a diesel engine. So yeah, overall I enjoy driving it. But moving on to the things that I'm not really a fan of, I should mention that you do get quite a lot of piano black on the central console, and as I'm looking at it, it's already scratching. So yeah, maybe you could cover that part, but I'm not really sure if you'll be able to, considering that you get a lot of controls over there. I'm not really a fan of the materials that they used in the back side of the vehicle, on the door cards, and also between the door and the rear bench. There's quite a bit of brittle plastic over there. And for the most part, maybe you won't get bothered by those materials, but if you're using the car for your family, if you have a child seat in the back, you're gonna get towards those materials quite often. And yeah, I know it's not a premium car, but maybe they could have done a bit better here and there. Other than that, I have the same complaint that I got to the yesteryear. The infotainment system, it's quite hard to use, and for the most part I think I would just plug in my phone and use Apple CarPlay. And it seems that they are intentionally trying to hide things around the vehicle. I saw an USB port on the dashboard after I finished the static review, because it was quite lower down and don't really see it unless you're really looking for it. So yeah, that goes with the infotainment system, which is a bit clumsy, as I said. But I'm really looking for disadvantages of this vehicle, because otherwise not really much to complain about. In terms of consumptions, as I've started the review, the average was about 5.3 liters. When I drove it outside the city, considering that it didn't go on electric power, the values were something like 6 liters. But once the engine got to the operating temperature and inside the cabin the temperature was steady, it started to lower the consumption, and for now it shows me 4.5 liters. So yeah, why would you need an SUV? Or why would you need a diesel engine? I mean, this is more comfortable and easier on your pocket. So that gets me to the maintenance part of our talk, because being a petrol engine without turbochargers or superchargers, the maintenance could be done at around 10,000 kilometers, maybe a bit often than that if you're using the car inside the city and mainly in stop and start traffic. That's where you should actually check the hybrid system from time to time, and I guess it's something that Toyota also recommends. But if you're using the car outside the city, I think you could stretch that interval to 12 or even 15,000 kilometers. And that's pretty much it. Considering that the weight of the car is at around 1.3 tons, you don't really have to look out for suspension, tires or brakes. And even if you do need to replace those, they're gonna be accessible in terms of cost. The wheels, as I said, they are 16 inches with 205 by 55 millimeters, which is one of the most common dimension, and that translates to a lower cost. So yeah, not really much to talk about. The overall cost of ownership, including the consumption figure, is gonna be way lower than if you're going for something with a diesel engine, or especially if you're going for a crossover. Yeah, you could argue that you really want or need that higher up driving position. But other than that, really, there's no way something like a crossover or an SUV could be better from a rational point of view than this vehicle. That's why I tend to say that this is supposed to be the family car, even nowadays. I said that the other model from Toyota, the CHR, it's what a city car looks today. Well, maybe this should be a family car for today. Yeah, that's gonna pretty much be it in terms of the driving part as well. I'm not really able to talk about the problems of the vehicle, because this model was lent to me again by Correct Automobile Prahova, and it's actually for sale. So that's gonna be it. If you enjoyed what you saw, please consider liking the video, and also you could leave your impressions in the comment section. Until next time, thank you for watching. See ya.